So, like I said, plenty of things to talk about, including the national champ.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Look at the show. I'm the captain now.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Fuck Scott.
That's right, college football fans. I am back, and we're taking over mid-show from Reid. Insert colonialism. It hasn't died yet. We're still taking over. One podcast at a time. That's right, folks. I am your host, Scott Ellia, and I am joined by the only hard R that I love, and it is Reid Murphy. How you doing, Reid?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great
Awesome.
with an R.
Well, this is even better because, we are branching out a little bit. It's not just a two-man show because we got Zuhair, the Curry Puff Ali. How you doing, Zoo?
This is you being serious?
This is usually the unhinged portion, and then it goes straight into being serious.
Oh, God.
But-
Unhinged is an understatement.
Well, talk about
I'm here.
unhinged.
I'm here.
Hey, I am here to teach you as much as I can. I'm sure you're not as well in depth with the college football world as I am, or even Reid. I think Reid has learned a lot this past season because
This
as
is my
unhinged.
first time watching the national championship game.
How'd you like it? It was boring, right?
It was a fun second quarter.
Yeah, I mean, for a college football playoff committee and ESPN, who died on the hill of wanting excellent quarterback play and wanting that to be their leading deciding factor into these teams going to the playoff. You have JJ McCarthy going out there posting 10 for 18 for 140 yards. Nothing says exciting more than that.
Yeah, condolences to all my family that went to Washington that were very excited for this game. Definitely not the outcome that they wanted.
No, I was excited for it too. I was really pulling for Washington. Of course, the consistent thing, and that's what the key word here, Zoo, on the show is consistency. I consistently lose all my bets, and nothing changed last night. What about you, Reid? Did you watch the game at all last night?
I watched the second half. I got into the second half of it. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible timing where, whoever the halftime people are on ESPN that aren't they're not my regular game day folks, but they're coming in there. They're saying, hey, this first drive by Washington in the second half is going to determine everything. And it started with an interception by Michael Penix. So they got me. It showed me from there. It lasted from there. I thought Washington was possibly going to make something magical happen, though.
Yeah, I felt like they definitely should have performed a little bit better. But when you have a head coach like Mr. Harbaugh himself over there, it's kind of hard to overcome. But not anything to take away from Washington. Of course, you had the Maxwell Award winner Michael Penix Jr. under center, and you had the Coach of the Year Kalen DeBoer. I think that's one name to kind of watch here the future and see what ends up happening with him there in Washington, especially with the big jump away from the Pac-12 for next season. But boy, oh boy, folks, was this season, and Zeus said it best. It was unhinged. I mean, I don't think anything happened the way that I thought it was going to happen. But first and foremost, I do want to say a quick congratulations to all the award winners from this past season, especially Jaden Daniels, who ended up being the Heisman Memorial Trophy winner this season, the quarterback from LSU. I know me and Reid were kind of going back and forth as far as if he deserves to get it or not, especially on an LSU team that kind of dropped the ball later on in the season. Reid, were you happy that he got it?
Ultimately, I was when it came down to really just analyzing how, I mean, literally every time he touched the ball, he's picking up yardage or scoring points. You can't argue with that. It wasn't his fault altogether that their record was the way it was. He couldn't play defense. So
right.
If he could, I mean, shit, that's an even plus for the Heisman vote. But altogether, I think he wound up deserving it.
Yeah, no, he cleaned house because not only did he get the Heisman, he got the Walter Camp for the Player of the Year. He got the Davey O'Brien, which is the National Quarterback Award, and then also the Johnny Unitas, which is the Outstanding Senior Quarterback. So congrats to him. Like I said, Kalen DeBoer, head coach for Washington, he got the Coach of the Year. And then I think Michael Penix, I think is more of just a pity trophy at this point. He got the Maxwell for Outstanding Player. Thanks, but no thanks. How is Jaden Daniels supposed to get 5 different trophies but not get that one? That traditionally doesn't happen.
It's like
spread them around.
It's like a Jamal Williams pity touchdown.
Right. Well, speaking about touchdowns, you have Marvin Harrison who got the Fred Biletnikoff for outstanding receiver. There's still kind of rumors and grumblings that he's going to be returning for one more season there in Ohio State with his two biggest goals beating the team up north that just won the college football national championship, the Michigan Wolverines, and also going to a Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. I don't believe he's going to come back. I think that's just a lot of hearsay at this point. Reid, I don't know if you have anything on that as it's developing.
I don't have any news on it, but I know personally I am of the belief that great, you have those college goals. I understand it. I'm sure watching Michigan win the Natty can be upsetting for him in that position when he feels so passionate about Ohio State. But honestly, I think everything he's saying is really just a leverage play when it comes to NIL talk and seeing where his draft stock is. If you're projected as a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick, as is his case, especially at wide receiver, you need to go. You got to go. Like, you can have all the passion in the world. You can want to graduate and do it the traditional way with college, but you got plenty of chances to go back to your alma mater. Everybody at Ohio State loves you. You have a fully formed legacy there. Dude, go take your guaranteed contract with the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the last thing he needs at this point is coming back for another season. He's out the first game with like some tragic ACL or life-threatening injury. Yeah, no, you're right. Go move on to greener pastures. Go get your bag in the NFL because you're going to get it. But we opened up the show talking a lot about the national championship game, the Michigan Wolverines over the Washington Huskies. But one thing we haven't really gotten into is kind of the path that led us to that game. Of course, we have been MIA for a couple weeks between the holiday season and sickness running rampant here in the state of Virginia. And now we have potential tsunami power outages going on right now. So this should make it interesting. So we'll go through this a little bit more expedited from here on out. But kind of diving into the New Year's Six games for a recap, the Cotton Bowl, we saw the number 9 Missouri defeating the number 7 Ohio State Buckeyes 14-3. Talk about just a lackluster game. Going into the preseason, I had predicted Oklahoma defeating Iowa. So now that I see how the actual season shook out, that's a hilarious kind of prediction from me. Moving on to the Peach Bowl, my prediction for that one was the Wisconsin Badgers over the Clemson Tigers. Double ha, especially with Clemson kind of doing what they do best and Clemsoning down there in South Carolina. No, this game we had Ole Miss defeating Penn State 38-25. The Fiesta Bowl. Reid, if you remember in the preseason show, I had predicted Oregon over LSU. I got one team right. That was nice. Oregon over Liberty 45-6. Poor Jerry's kids couldn't get over that 6 mark.
We need to start making bets just on the opposite of what you pick.
That's what I'm thinking. I need to start fading myself, but I'm sure if I do that, I'm still going to find some way where I'm going to lose more money than I want to talk. And talk about losing. Before we get into college football playoff games, the Orange Bowl, the last New Year's Six game we can talk about. My prediction here was Florida State over Ohio State. Another game I got right. Florida State went, but boy, did they get crushed 63-3 by the hands of the Georgia Bulldogs. And honestly, I have gone through the process. I've gone through all stages of grieving. It still is leaving a sour taste in my mouth, especially based off the fact that opt-outs and transfer portal made it damn near impossible for Florida State to even compete. If you look at that starting lineup from the ACC Championship, damn near every starter and even almost every second-string player did not even play at that point. So you sit there thinking like, okay, well, how do you combat this from happening in the future? Because that's just bad football. You even had Kirby Smart coming out in the post-game conference kind of saying how it just makes for a bad situation for both sides, for the fans. Honestly, I think one way to fix that, Reid, I don't know if you can agree with this, is why is the transfer portal even open before the national championship is over? It would make sense to have this to be at a complete standstill until after the championship game is done. I don't know if you agree or disagree, if you have thoughts on that.
No, I agree with that. Or if ultimately it's just made all of these bowl games feel kind of like the NFL's Pro Bowl, right? Where like if it's not the college football playoff, nobody seems to care. Nobody wants to take part in it. Nobody wants to risk anything. And next thing you know, you've got like some walk-on dude that you've never seen before in any of these games. The teammates have never seen him before, taking over as the starting quarterback. And look, you brought up Kirby Smart, so I actually want to play that sound for you. And
Tyler Huntley in the Pro Bowl.
and get the the coach that put 63 on your team. I want you. He agrees with you, and I like how he said it all. Very dramatic and kind of war-torn fashion.
Let me say something on that because you didn't ask me that question, and maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe this will be a bad soundbite. But people need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this. It needs to be fixed. It's very unfortunate that they, who has a good football team and a good football program, are in the position they're in. And everybody can say it's their fault and it's their own problem. All right. And everybody can say that we had our guys and they didn't have their guys. I can listen to all that. But college football has got to decide what they want. And I know things are changing. And I think things are going to change next year. And you know what? There's going to still be bowl games outside of those. People got to decide what they want and what they really want to get out of it. Because it's really unfortunate for those kids on that sideline that had to play in that game that didn't have their full arsenal. And it affected the game 100%.
That man was just in a war-torn area.
People need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this.
Yeah, he didn't want to win just because the other team was in victory formation.
Program.
To earn that win.
Program.
No, I mean, he's 1,000% correct. It's not just this game. You saw that throughout every bowl game this year. He had kids not playing for this or that reason. And you kind of get into the conversation like, okay, well, how do we fix this? Do we penalize players? Do we penalize these football programs for not fielding their roster that they had set out towards the end of the season? I honestly think that's the wrong route. Why penalize a player looking out for himself? The way that I feel that would be best to combat this, Reid, and I want to get both your guys' thoughts on this because it's clear as day that the only games that people actually care about as far as fan bases go for college football is the college football playoff. We're moving to the expanded playoff next year. So that means there's going to be more games that are actually going to be relevant to fans. I feel all these other games have become so irrelevant and they're so meaningless. Let's make them meaningful again. The only way I feel them actually make them meaningful again, shove them to the beginning of the season for the next year. All these random ass games, all these marquee matchups, you can keep the same matchups, just have it at the beginning of the season, make it actually meaningful at that point, because you're going from a game where there's nothing on the line to now putting it to your first game of the year where it's going to set the whole tone for the rest of the season.
That's actually really interesting to me. And I mean, that bowl game credit going to it, I mean, would that go towards, that's not going to go towards anybody from that past regular season though, right?
Well, not to, I guess, for starting it out, if you really want to think about it that way. That first, like, if they wanted to kind of install it this next coming season. So that way you go into the 24 season, you play the whole year, and the only bowl games that you actually play are the college football playoff games. All the other bowl games you move to the following year. Yeah, it's not going to count to any of the kids that are playing that year, but that, if anything, that's probably going to entice a lot of these juniors that are on the fence as far as coming back or not to come back the next year so they can actually play in that bowl game, get the credit for it, all the kind of the incentives tied to it at the same time, and still make another push.
Yeah, the incentive is a big point, and then it's also, like you were saying about them trying to decide whether they want to stay or not. It helps put stuff on tape. So if you're having it at the end of the year and it's meaningless and you have that mentality, then the players who don't feel like they're going to be going as high or just playing, just to figure out where they end up, they're not going to put in the effort, and that's going to hurt the people who actually have like high draft stock. So if you have an opportunity to put them more in the spotlight in these high populated games, these highly viewed games, and give them the opportunity to actually put out tape that matters with people who are actually trying to help their team win, will definitely make a huge difference.
Right. Yeah, it's just my thought is moving them to the beginning of the season. I think that would start the season a little earlier, start at sometime in August. You play throughout the regular season, and then you have a nice, week and a half, 2-week break before the playoffs actually start. I think that would be best for everyone at this point.
That's a great buffer after spring football too.
Makes for a very eventful start. Makes it an actual event to start your season.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because you're seeing a lot of these teams now doing the whole scheduling process as far as making these marquee matchups. I mean, especially for Florida State. I mean, we opened the season up 2 years in a row against LSU. We started against a top 5, top 10 team. And that's what these college football fans want to see. They want to see marquee matchups early on in the season. They don't want to wait till halfway through or wait until they get into the conference play. Open it up immediately. Let's see where everyone's at, start shaking it out from the get-go, and actually make these games meaningful again. That's just where I'm at as far as how to fix the bowl season. But another issue that you kind of see coming up is the whole NIL and transfer portal, and it's making these college football programs have to be on edge with their players 24/7. You know, you're constantly recruiting high school players. You're constantly going through the transfer portal to see all these kids that might leave, who might not leave. And this is why I feel you could see Kirby Smart, the head coach from Georgia, finally make that jump from the Georgia Bulldogs to the Atlanta Falcons. I think he recently came out stating that he was willing to have the conversation as far as being a head coach, because at this point, the NCAA football is just a mini NFL. You're having to deal with a lot of the same stuff, but you might as well go deal with adults and have a lot more rules and regulations to free agency and, player retention.
And then we could get that sound when it comes to Jameis Winston, running in a touchdown, calling a touchdown play in victory formation.
People need to see what happened tonight, and they need to fix this.
Thank you.
Oh, but hey, it's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. I know it's definitely the biggest talking point right now going into the offseason between the NIL. It's still really, really young as far as its utilization. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that are changing year in and year out. All right, folks, let's jump into the actual games that mattered. The college football playoff, opening up with the Rose Bowl. At the beginning of the season, I had predicted Michigan over USC, and I was right, Reid. I finally got one right, because you had number 1 Michigan defeating number 4 Alabama 27-20 in overtime. JJ McCarthy actually looked like a competent quarterback in that game, going 17 for 27, 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Blake Corum still running over everybody for 19 rushing attempts, 83 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Milroe in Alabama. Reid, I don't know if you saw this, or even Zoo if you saw this, but he looked like the quarterback that Bill O'Brien knows he looks like. 16 for 23, 116 yards, and 6 sacks. Before the game, Milroe came out in response to Bill O'Brien, the late offensive coordinator for the Alabama Crimson Tide, who went back to the New England Patriots, saying that Milroe should look into being a different position. Milroe came out saying, "How would you feel if I told you that you suck?" He told me a bunch of positions. He told me a bunch of positions I could have switched to, but look where I am right now. Who gets the last laugh? Bill O'Brien gets the last laugh, because if anything, your performance showed that you suck and you should not be a quarterback. But I digress. And of course, you got Jason McClellan, 14 for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Moving on to the Sugar Bowl. Prediction there. I was right on another game. I had Georgia over Texas, but it was Washington over Texas. So I got another one right, 37-31. Michael Penix Jr., I still feel that he got the shaft when it comes to the Heisman Trophy, because that game he did phenomenal. 29 for 38, 430 yards and 2 touchdowns. Roba Dunze, which I'm actually putting him at the number 1 wide receiver. I actually think I would take Roma Dunze over Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point into next year's draft. 6 receptions for 125 yards. Reid, did you catch him at all playing last night?
I don't know if he performed a little better in the first half, but I didn't see too much going on there in the second half from him. I know he's a very impressive receiver. I've been enjoying watching him, especially in this second half of the season as Washington got more, primetime play. But you would really take him over Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I would. Yeah, because even in the championship game, he went 5 for 87, just no touchdowns. He just couldn't find his way into the end zone. But I actually like what I see on tape more from Rome than I do with Marvin. And I think it's just a little bit of bias. I've never trusted a player's kid coming into the NFL. That goes with across all 4 major sports. I never trust the next one up when it comes to families.
He's from the Ohio State.
And they can go fuck the off. How about that? Well, moving on, Texas, Quinn Ewers, 24 for 43, 318 yardage-wise in the air and 1 touchdown. Staying another year there in Texas as they're moving to the SEC next season. I feel this is a good move for Quinn. I think you have a lot of these quarterbacks coming out this year. I think he would get lost in the shuffle. Having another year on tape would be a great thing for him, especially coming off that injury. But my biggest question is, when are we going to see Baby Manning and Arch Manning there? He's staying another year. He looks like he's going to be the main second string quarterback behind Quinn Ewers. Reid, could you see him transferring along with the other kids, or do you think he's actually going to be one of these players that will be faithful and trust the process?
I would like to see him just stay and wait out another year. I mean, the little bit of action that we got to see from him this year, I think showed that he probably needs it would help to get a little more under his feet and, get some of this process. I mean, what rush is he really in? You've got Manning blood, you've got Manning legacy and Manning money. It's not like he's hurting for anything. He can actually sit, wait, not get embarrassed with early film. I think Texas is a great program for him to lead, and it's one that will certainly boost any stock if he can lead them to the same kind of success that Quinn has gotten there. So, and Quinn's a good quarterback for him to learn from.
Right. I mean, especially you got Steve Sarkisian back down there, who is like the quarterback whisperer when it comes to college football. And now you don't have that threat of Malik Murphy lingering around because he recently transferred to Duke. So you're clearly the heir apparent. I think Quinn has gotten hurt every season he's played, spanning back to Ohio State. So I think it's only a matter of time before Quinn goes down again next season. And then you get Arch Manning in there to see what he's worth. But more to come there. But yes, folks, to cap it all off, we did have the college football playoff championship game last night. Michigan Wolverines 34 over the Washington Huskies 13. I think the biggest question coming out of this game is, now that Harbaugh has reached the mountaintop in college football, you have a lot of things kind of set in motion. Do you think there's going to be pushback from the other fan bases for an asterisk next to their championship win?
I mean,
with all their cheating allegations and scouting allegations and blah, 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 blah.
Well, the first two things that I saw trending last night as soon as the game ended was all caps cheaters, and then the next one was Connor Stallions, and asking whether Connor Stallions should get a ring. Yeah, people will push for the asterisk, and we've joked saying, like, I was rooting for them to win just so we could see it vacated in a couple of years. I don't think it's going to go to that point. I don't think that they will ever vacate the championship or put an asterisk next to it or anything.
Right.
Ultimately, they were still wildly impressive at any point, even past the cheating allegations and all. So I don't think any asterisk will come. And I think I'm actually happy for Jim. I was very happy watching him win and watching all of his hype, watching him hug his dad and lift him up and everything with all that. I think it was a really awesome moment for him.
Well, and especially for him, because now, as he said, he can sit at the adults table now during the holiday dinners, because his dad won a championship there in Michigan, and then his brother John won the Super Bowl. So now Jim has his championship under his belt. But I feel like his career track now can either go in one of two ways. He can either now stay in Michigan and get paid and stay there forever, now that he brought a title back to Ann Arbor, but he's been tied to a lot of these NFL openings, one of which, with this, I know being a podcast and being an audio medium, I'll just describe it. Reid is currently wearing a burgundy and gold hoodie with like a W with yellow outlining. I believe that's a Washington Commanders hoodie, if I'm not mistaken. He gave me the thumbs up. He gave me a double thumbs up, so that means I'm right, folks. He has been tied to Washington, and he's also been tied to the Bears, which I've kind of heard grumblings about. Is there any validity to this, with you guys being kind of the NFL experts to the 3-2-3?
You can go ahead, Zoo.
Start with Zoo.
No, please go ahead.
I don't know. I've heard. So Jim Harbaugh hired Don Yee to be his new agent representative. Don Yee is a very noted NFL agent. He was Tom Brady's agent for pretty much his whole career. So this happened within the last week or two. So I think he's definitely going to be entertaining NFL offers. I don't know if he'll be entertaining Washington necessarily, but Bob Myers, who is the new advisor consultant from the championship Golden State Warriors, coming in to help Josh Harris lead this coaching search, Myers has already put in a call to Don Yee about Jim Harbaugh and possible interviews. We won't hear anything, I don't think, probably for at least a week. I'm sure Jim wants to relish in the championship and all, but I mean, if my opinion on this is he just accomplished his dream. He won a championship for his alma mater, and he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. He got very close. He got as close as you possibly can with the 49ers. And I think that's probably the next step. That's the next goal. Return to the NFL, finish what you started. At this point, he could come back to Michigan whenever he wants. He has a statue in waiting already because of this championship. And when it comes to head coaches, it never really ends the way that you want, especially now in college. I mean, even we get talks about Nick Saban on a hot seat with Alabama. We're long past those days where coaches are playing, coaching their team into their paterno ages and can pretty much die coaching a team and not worry about getting fired. I think Jim Harbaugh, you have a couple bad years get mixed in out of nowhere, and all of a sudden this praise that we're doing right now for the undefeated season goes away and you get fired from Michigan. Why ruin your legacy and all that? Just leave on top, go to the NFL and try to chase that dream, and if it doesn't work out, you can get whatever college job you want.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that, but as we know, he was on the list of people that were requested for an interview for the NFL. Obviously, there's a lot of vacancies going on right now that just need people who know how to win. And this could be just a good change of pace for him to just try something else and move on. Like you said, that school's always going to be a safety net for him. So if it doesn't work out, or if it's a absolute shit show, he could always bounce back and then just go back to being a winner. But I was dying when John came up to say hi to him yesterday, like while he was really locked in, because since he was just in like normal clothes for a hot second, I was like, what's Brock Purdy doing over there? So as if those pictures of them looking alike wasn't bad enough, I fully thought that Brock Purdy actually showed up to say hi to him.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought he was about to start fighting somebody as soon as he jumped on there. But yeah,
he was so locked in. The second he got tapped, he's like, "What the fuck do you want?"
Were you all also thrown off by how alike Jim and Jack Harbaugh look? Like, it was almost like seeing Jack Harbaugh pop up. It was almost like Jim from the future coming to congratulate his younger self. It was.
Oh yeah, speaking about old man Instagram filters, I sent one. Zoo sent one. Reid never sent one.
An old man? Oh, well, let me get on that.
Yeah, put your shit on blast now. Oh, but speaking about old men, it's just going to be another old man in college football looking for a payday, because last I had checked, Michigan was looking into sending a deal over to Jim Harbaugh for 10 years, $125 million. That's going to be really hard to turn down. I think that would make him second to only Nick Saban for yearly salary. I think that would make it to about $11.5 million a year. Is my math correct?
It's insane how much college
we lost Reid.
goes into sports.
I was looking at these old man filter pictures on Snapchat.
Oh boy, but that is it, folks. It has been a wild ride. Season 1 of College Shame Days in the books. Gonna break it down, get back to the war room, kind of figure out what the direction is going to be from here. I believe me and Reid have had discussions as far as switching this from weekly episodes to monthly episodes, because there's really not a lot that happens week to week in college football once this kind of all ends. I feel like we're probably going to end up doing a lot more of the scouting profiles for the NFL draft on this channel and talk about these players a lot more in depth. But thank you guys for joining me on this wonderful evening. I'm glad none of us lost power during this process.
Incredibly. You got to love that.
Oh. Start off, we have there, like I said, we have there Zuhair Ali. Zuhair, do you want to let the folks know where they can find you? You can do a plug on my show this time.
Oh, wow. So honored. Yeah, I do Animation Deliberation, the podcast where we take action animation and cartoon seriously, but not too seriously. We just finished our cover of Jujutsu Kaisen. We're prepping for What If. And there's just a lot of content, a lot of animated content that's coming out this year. So lots to talk about there.
Awesome. And I will say it is a great show. I have the Animation Deliberation song stuck on my head at all times. So that's always fun. And that wonderful face right there in that burgundy and gold is the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Reid Murphy. Thank you, Reid, for everything.
Of course.
Like I've always said, you without you, it would be impossible for a middle class white guy to have a voice on the internet.
Oh, middle class.
And lower middle class. But thank you, folks, for tuning in to the 323 Network. We appreciate your support and passion for college football and all these engaging discussions that we've had. Make sure to stay connected with us, not only on Instagram, but also Facebook at 323 College Shame Day and at 323 Reid. On YouTube, the 323 Network. Don't forget to subscribe and catch our latest episodes wherever podcasts can be found. You've already found out that I listen on Spotify. Reid listens on Spotify. Zuhair, where do you listen to your podcasts on?
I'm the outcast. I listen to Apple Podcasts.
See, folks, you can find it anywhere. Everyone has their own little flavor. But until next time, have a very shameful day. I don't know.
And stay safe.
And
Look
stay
at that.
safe, I guess. if you want to.
Crossover. It's a crossover. We do them all.
Stay whelmed. More crossovers.
Oh, my God.
Thank you.